What's the price guide for this place?
1.25.
1.25. Ooh, it's a little bit. Oh, because the view, baby.
Yeah.
Look at that. Yeah, it looks like a
1, 2, 3, funk it.
Hey guys, today I want to start my video by telling a joke. Sydney property prices. Yes, that's a joke. You see, so I'm trying to say Sydney property price is a joke, and that's the actual joke. So I make you assume that I'm gonna telling a joke, but it's actually a statement. Sydney property price is a joke. You see what I'm doing there? Did you do? But today I'm gonna be sharing with you my apartment hunting story in Sydney. I know with the COVID-19 sent the economy to recession, it seemed a little bit out of touch and counterintuitive talking about buying a property. However, I believe it's everyone's patriotic duty to keep spending money to keep the economy going. And on the other hand, I think it's a great timing to get into the property market because the interest rate is dropping. As resilient as the Sydney property market is, I do believe the price will be dropping in the next 2 or 3 months. And because currently I don't go to work every day, so it's the first time in probably a decade I have a substantial amount of time on hand. So what's a better time to get into the property market than now? But I did not just wake up from my COVID-19 lockdown one morning and decided to go to house opening. So here is how it all begins. It was a warm autumn afternoon in April. We were just fresh out of quarantine. I was taking a stroll in this really leafy suburb called Hornsby to visit Scott's dad who has some business in the area. Hornsby is one of those old Sydney suburbs that are full of low-rise units and houses and beautiful leafy pathways. And the price is reasonably affordable. Since the next day is Saturday, so I told Scott, why don't we go to the open houses tomorrow? And that marks the beginning of my 2-month-long apartment hunt. We didn't really find anything that's suitable for us that weekend in Hornsby. However, afterwards, we definitely started to be more serious about the plan of finding a new apartment together. So this is my current situation. I'm currently living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Homeloan. It is a waterfront inner west suburb, 15 minutes by bus or by ferry walk to the city, so it is very convenient. All in all, it's supposed to be my dream home. However, fast forward 5 years later, my personal situation changed and my life priority changed as well. When I got the apartment, I hadn't even met Scott yet, but at the moment, I think I'm ready to move to the next stage of my life. Maybe to start a family, so it's not as important to be close to the city. So at this time, I'm seriously thinking trade the convenience to the city with better affordability and proximity to a nice cafe and daycare instead of bar and nightlife. So next step is naturally to sort out your finance. So when you figure out where your budget is at, I highly recommend to have a wholesome look at your finance and then also look at the next 5 years of plan of your life. And lastly, it's also important to look at this as an investment opportunity and to see how you can come up with a financial plan that maximize your assets and to grow a little bit money. So considering at this time the selling market is not very well, instead of selling my current apartment, I am actually gonna rent it. The rental income I receive is gonna cover the expenses of maintaining this current apartment while I'm living somewhere else. And apparently it's not worth doing it if your rental potential is not enough to cover all the expenses. And the next step is looking at buying, because I'm not gonna sell this apartment, so that definitely decrease the cash I can put into my future apartment. So I have to get a loan. And this is where it gets a little bit math heavy. You have to drill the number very carefully. It really depends on how much money you're borrowing. So what you want to do is maximize your borrowing power, but also make sure your monthly repayment is affordable. I'm trying to find an example. For example, you have saved a bit of money, and after 10% payment and stamp duty paid, you only need 500k to settle this property. And now you still have 200k cash on hand.
So you only need to talk to bank to get a loan of 300k. So after the bank assess your income, you can loan up to 500k. Do you just get a 300k home loan to settle the property or maximize your borrowing power to 500k?
I recommend to get a 500k home loan. Given that you are able to make a repayment with no issue. Get a home loan product with a withdraw offset function. With the actual 200k cash that you already have, put it on the home loan to deduct the interest. So by the end of the day, you're still only paying interest on the 300k home loan you're borrowing. But instead, with the 200k you put in the withdrawal account, you're able to maximize your cash flow in case you suddenly need to invest in something else or you're suddenly in a finance difficulty, then you still end up with quite significant amount of cash on your hand that you can work with. So utilize the opportunity, do a little bit research, and definitely get out of the mentality that the bank is charging my interest, I need to deduct that interest as soon as I can. In a way, that is right, but also bank is there to work for you. So definitely look into all these options and variety of a finance product in the market before you make a decision. So now you have a clear idea on what your next stage life will be, and you have looking into all those different finance options, and you know how much you can spend and how much you can borrow. So the next natural step will be where? Hi Polly. Hello Polly. Hello. You smart bird, please don't poop on me. Okay, enough. Oh, I like this one better. Wait, this is Harry Potter. Harry Potter? Come back. 不是 cannot sue us for child abuse. Oh, that pushback can be a little bit annoying. No. Oh my god, how many doorbells do you have to press?
Are going on a run.
No, well, but I like it.
I'll pick something to see one.
No need to worry about your pre-recorded music tapes being accidentally erased. It can't happen.
What's the price guide for this place? 1.25. It's a little bit. Oh, it's a view, baby. Look at that.
Let's get scratching.
Well, I have been living in Sydney for over 12 years. Like any city in this world, you have your suburbs that are more up-class looking. You have suburbs that are a bit problematic. You have suburbs with a very good racial mix, and you have your suburbs with predominantly one race. One full of middle class, one full of working class, one with gang activities, the ones that recently received makeover and became very trendy. I'm not really here to recommend any area to move in. However, Sydney being one of the most expensive cities in the world, is a housing price can get a little bit shocking. So combine the affordability and the plan I have for myself for the next 5 years, I come up with these 3 criteria in deciding where I want to move to. First is a very good racial mix. In case it's not obvious I am an Asian, and I have been living here for 12 years. I've got my citizenship after I finished my master's degree in Sydney. I found a job. I spent my whole adulthood in the city. I fully embraced the value and the culture in Australia, but every now and then you still get people ask you where you're from, where you're really from. I get it. If you are first generation of an immigrant, you will not be considered an Aussie. This is the pain that you probably have to suffer all your life, which is quite sad to think about. Over 54% of Australians were not born in Australia. So basically you are exclude half of your population of Australian people, and they are not considered Aussie. I can't change my past, and this is where I am. But I definitely do not want my kids to grow up in a country where they're consistently treated as a foreigner. So to be able to live in an area where you have a very good racial mix, I didn't mean that it has to be an Asian suburb. I just mean that I don't want a suburb to be predominantly one race. So I want my kids to grow up in an environment where multiculturalism is definitely embraced and normalized. And also with the recent coronavirus outbreak all over the world, there's definitely been more racial tension. So yeah, that's definitely my top priority, is that I don't want to live in a suburb where racial diversity barely exists, even though that has a price tag attached to it. So it's just the way it is. If you live in a multicultural society like Australia, and then if you think your race has zero bearing in your job perspective or your living condition or your dating life or generally how you were treated, you're either a white male or you're in denial. My second criteria is waterfront living. With the anti-racism rant out of the way, I have to say though, being a Sydney-sider, one of the privilege is we constantly have option of having a very nice water-dwelling opportunities. We have the beautiful Sydney Harbour connected to Langcove River or Parramatta River, which give the city an abundant supply of harborside or waterside living. A lot of them are million-dollar mansions, but every now and then you can find new suburbs with amazing water scenery and reasonably affordable price. And third is good public transport and walking distance to the shopping area, which is quite self-explanatory. So with all that in mind, I narrowed down to 3 suburbs, which are Meadowbank, Rhodes, and Wentworth Point. All these 3 areas are in a west suburb. They are pretty much adjacent to one another, all with a beautiful water view and heaps of supply of either old or newly developed apartments. Rhodes has probably the longest development history. Back in the day, it was a toxic waste dumping ground. After Sydney Olympic Game, it received a new makeover. So nowadays, it's full of restaurant, eatery, cafe, and shopping, and it has a train station which is quite convenient. Meadowbank has a shorter development history, great transport option by boat and by train, not so much shopping and lack of a long-term planning, which can be a little bit problem. Wentworth Point is a very recently developed area. I do love Wentworth Point. The vibe is just right there. It has really good racial mix and it's very appealing for young professionals working in the city like myself and young families with kids. And the best thing about Wentworth Point is the development plan for the whole area is really great. The developer there didn't really just develop the property there, they also built a new bridge over to roads. They built a lot of infrastructure and new schools, new daycare, so everything's brand new. It's a very exciting place to be. So with the 3 criteria in mind and the 3 areas, I plan on having a look. So after 2 months long apartment hunting, countless apartment inspected, I shortlisted 3 apartments and that were in the serious stage of putting an offer. So next, let me take you along with me to this journey. I will also be sharing with you the mistakes I make along the way and all the experience and lesson I learned through this whole process, and hope that I can help you in some small ways in your own apartment hunting journey.
Hey Shirley, hope you're well. Can you please call me back on 0?
Where do I sign my name on the contract?
Swimming in no man's
You can even script this better even you try.
Which means the bank will no longer loan me the same amount of money.